What is up, IDP Army? What is up, Underdogs? This is the Underdogs. I am Jordan Rains. This is my man Dave Kluge. We got an underdog draft coming here for you guys. We're gonna talk about the slate. Yeah, how are y'all doing today? And how are you doing,
I'm
Dave?
I'm doing good. I thought you were asking a rhetorical question to the audience there, but no, man, I am doing great. Feeling real good coming off back-to-back wins, but I won't rub that in your face too much.
Ooh, yeah. So the current tally before we hit the intro music, I did get the week one win. Dave has gone back to back on me, but this week I'm coming back. I want to even up the score, and I need to get right, y'all. So let's get to it. All right, we are back in. If you are on YouTube, do us a big favor, throw us a subscribe, throw us a like. Head down into the comments or the show description, wherever you want to call it. You'll see a link to Underdog. You can join us on Underdog in some drafts. You can follow us on social. Follow the podcast feed because this is obviously on YouTube, but we do have a podcast as well. Trying to grow that. And yeah, so Dave beat me last week. Derrick Henry went TF off. How did you do overall last week besides just our head to head in fantasy and in underdog?
No, I had a pretty good week. I was really bullish on Jalen Waddle, who had a nice 2 touchdown game, so that helped me out in my rankings quite a bit. Last week though, I actually only lost in one of my fantasy leagues across the board. I had myself a really, really, really good week. So not only was I back home in Chicago going to the Bears game, that was a little tough, watching the Bears get smoked by Aaron Rodgers, who still owns us.
You knew it
But
was coming.
oh my god, yeah. I mean, I've prepared for it at this point. I was just going there to have a good time. But no, overall, I had a pretty good week. My rankings were hot. I did pretty good in my fantasy football league, so I'm feeling good about it. My wife got off to a slow start in Scott Fishbowl and needed a streamer, so I took a look at her waivers and I said, "Hey, pick up Donovan Peoples Jones," and she got her first win in SFB. So
Ooh, nice.
overall, I'm feeling pretty good after last week.
That's a good win too. It feels good to win in fantasy, but it feels really good when like you pick up that guy that like nobody saw coming, and that he's a literal definition of that. So kudos to her. Shout out to her. Shout out to you. You did great in the rankings this week overall. Would you were number 2 overall, right?
Number 2 overall. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
The haters
Appreciate
will
you
say
shouting
it's
that out a
fake,
little bit.
but it's not. It really happened, guys. Dave Kluge's got that shit.
Yeah.
So, good job there, man. I'm proud of you for that, and I'm trying to catch you. Okay, now the next goal is one of us has to hit one. Okay, you come close, but whoever gets one first, that's where the real cherry is. So, all right, we're gonna take a look at this underdog slate here. You guys know that's what this show is about. If you are listening to the podcast, you're not gonna be able to see this, but we'll talk you through it. So, um, every week, Dave and I go head to head in a draft. An underdog, the way they do it is you do one quarterback, one tight end. Well, you can do two tight ends. You do one quarterback, one running back, two wide receivers, and you have a flex and you have a tight end. So it's just a starting roster, and they do it as a draft versus doing a salary cap. So let's go ahead and turn these all on and take a look here. Obviously, the 101 is Derrick Henry. Last week I said the 101 of the slate was
Austin Eckler.
Austin Eckler, and he really burned a lot of people, I'm sure. Thankfully, because Saquon burned me so bad the week before, I knew to split up kind of my roster ship position. So this last week, I had about half Eckler, half Najee Harris as my running back one. So I ended up salvaging a little bit this last week. But Derrick Henry's the 101 at running back. What are your thoughts on the wide receivers? I know before we came on, you were saying that you're expecting a big week from AJ Brown. This is a great spot for him to get right in Kansas City. Tell people why you like AJ Brown this week.
So I love AJ Brown, and he's somebody that I'm targeting really heavy in DFS, and I even made some trades for him last week before his game against Buffalo. So I was all in on AJ Brown in the offseason, and I wasn't ready to throw in the towel after a slow start to the season. First 2 weeks he was getting acclimated to a new offense, learning to share the field with Julio Jones, and then he had an injury, and it's like for some reason this guy has a slight injury, and then everybody just decides to write him off and decide, oh yeah, forget all the first 2 years that he had in the NFL, forget all the analyzing we did in the offseason. AJ Brown's a wide receiver 3 now, and I think that was just absurdly reactive. This guy is one of the best players in the league since the NFL merger back in 1965. There have been 8 wide receivers that have had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons to start their career, and A.J. Brown is one of them. So, I mean, we are looking at a generational talent, and I know that that term gets thrown around way too frequently, but I truly believe that's what A.J. Brown is. That being said, with how slim and skinny these are, these one-on-one drafts that we do in Underdog, A.J.
Hmm.
Brown probably isn't somebody that I'm going to be targeting. I think that he's a great buy low option. He's a good discount option on DFS. He's somebody that you should be trying to trade for in your fantasy leagues. But I think that right now, in my rankings heading into this week, even with the great matchup against Kansas City, he's still more of a second tier player for me. And you usually aren't looking past like DJ Moore, Jamar Chase when you're doing these skinny drafts. So AJ Brown probably won't be on my radar today.
Yeah, DJ Moore's let you down the last couple of weeks, but the targets have definitely been there. So I imagine one or both of us will end up going to that well. We get Debo Samuel back. He's been obviously had a great hot start to the season, and Shanahan's been committed to him. If he's been committed to anything this season, it's been Debo Samuel. So if you're going to take anybody on that team, it's him, and at least we know that he can produce. I guess RIP George Kittle is in order here. He is on the IR, but even before that, he wasn't doing much for you. Yeah, I mean, Devontae Adams, they have him still projected as the top guy here against Washington. I I understand why he's projected so high every single week, but at the same time, sometimes I wonder like why we have to try to force Tyreek Hill, who's getting 12, 13, 12 targets a week, as number 2, when in my eyes he's kind of clearly number 1. But we'll see how that goes. I imagine my strategy this week is going to be to target this Kansas City game. I know you said that on the skinny draft you don't expect
Ooh,
AJ Brown drafted, which kind of tipped your hand to me. Now I know that I'm going to be able to wait late and get AJ Brown as my third wide receiver if I choose. That's fun. But yeah, I mean, you get Derrick Henry in this game too, who, I mean, even if he gets phased out, he never really gets phased out. He is their whole offense. I wanted to see what you thought about the rest of the way they have this projected. So behind Derrick Henry, they have Aaron Jones, Daryl Henderson, Jonathan Taylor. Do you feel like Daryl Henderson ahead of Jonathan Taylor makes sense against Detroit?
I mean, don't get me wrong, Detroit's good, but I think that Matthew Stafford is really going to want to put on one of his better games just to, I don't want to buy too much into the revenge narrative, but I mean, that's where Matt Stafford played his entire career. You better believe that if Aaron Rodgers gets a chance to play Green Bay next year, wherever he's playing, he's going to put on his best showing. And I think that Matthew Stafford's going to do the same. So, I'd be projecting a much bigger game for the passing side of things for the Rams than I would be for the rushing side. And they might just get to the point where they're up so heavy that they have to, just feed Daryl Henderson the rock relentlessly. But no, I mean, I'm not really trying to take Daryl Henderson ahead of Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, or any of those
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, the way Kamara's volume has been, it's been extremely high. It doesn't look like he's going to be on the main slate this week. I
Good
want to
point.
point out. I know everybody's about usage right now, but I mean, touch for touch, Jonathan Taylor is basically getting the exact same volume as Daryl Henderson. And I think that there's no world where you would say Daryl Henderson's more talented than Jonathan Taylor. Uh, Maybe you expect this to be a competitive game script, but then I don't know. I think the 49ers have not necessarily been uber competitive. So on a team where it's more of a funnel offense, Jonathan Taylor kind of being that funnel, um, I like him a little bit more. So I'm curious about that projection. He's almost a full point lower projected, but I'm not a projection guy. I just kind of wanted to get your take since you're the rankings genius around here. I need to hit you up
Stop.
after this. Have you
Stop. Get
help
out of
me
here.
hit you
Get
up
out of
afterwards?
here.
Have you help me tweak my stuff up a little bit? So obviously we're gonna have Travis Kelsey at 1, Darren Waller at 2. I don't know. I kind of think that's a little bit goofy anymore too. Mark Andrews,
Mark Andrews
uh,
has been balling out.
he's a beast. He's a
Balling
beast.
out.
And it's not just yards and it's not just targets, which I know we love for Waller. But I mean, there's no touchdown equity with Waller. You know what I mean? There's really
That's
not. I
kinda
mean,
always been the thing against him. I mean, last year,
yeah,
he wasn't a touchdown machine either. You were hoping that he was gonna regress into getting more touchdowns this year, but it
yeah.
just isn't really happening for him, unfortunately. Where on the flip side, you got Mark Andrews, who just has a nose for the end zone and is able to come down with contested jump balls. in the red zone. And Mark Andrews, I mean, he's not going to get anywhere near the volume that
Yeah.
Darren Waller will, but his efficiency and his ability to score touchdowns, I think might, make him a more alluring option right now than Darren Waller.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the jump ball, but it's even just it's it's just being open. I mean, I feel like Mark Andrews, he really does just catch everything. I mean, this Indiana game they have highlighted here, 13 targets, 11 receptions, 2 touchdowns, but that's really 4 touchdowns because he caught both 2-point conversions after the
Yep.
touchdowns, which was
Yep.
insanity to watch. Like, I ain't seen Darren Waller do nothing like that in his career. That's all I'm
That was the
saying.
game of the year, man. It's going to be tough to top that game at all.
Yeah, true, true. All right, gotta show Kyle Pitts a little bit of juice for the Kyle Pitts people out there. He coming off his best game of his career. He had 10 targets. He's had quite a few targets before. First time in his career, he went over that 100-yard mark. He got a touchdown, ended up in a cumulative 22 points. This week, a lot of the reason I think people go with him is just because we know the targets are going to be there, and he really is. He's different. I'll give him that. But the problem with him right now isn't him; it's Atlanta, and it's
Mhm.
the fact that they just seem dysfunctional. They seem unaware of themselves, unable to really find their identity. Maybe that's because they're shifting; they don't have one. I think he's part of the future of that identity, though. He's going to be majorly. Interested to see how they look coming off the bye. I doubt either of us end up with him, but I may end up with a couple of shares of him in the tournaments this weekend. Any
Can we get
major?
Cordell Patterson to get some tight end eligibility on Underdog?
Yeah, right. Why don't we just? He just needs to be just a flex. He just goes anywhere. Like he doesn't play position. He's a weapon, like Jamal Adams. All right.
Right.
Well. All right, ladies and
Ready for
gentlemen.
me to
It's
jump
been
in?
Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this head-to-head draft as always. I got a little drop for this too. It's $5. We're going head-to-head on Underdog. Winner doesn't take all because Underdog takes their cut, obviously. But we got a
4 weeks in a
little
row, you got the first pick.
something for you. Woo! 5
Love it.
on it. Let's do it. Let's see what we got here. All
You
right,
gotta be
got the
kidding me,
number
man.
one
This is
again.
4 this is episode 4, and you've had the number 1 pick 4 times in a row.
Dude, I'm telling you, I told you this summer, like I got the number 1 overall pick in 2 of my best ball mania drafts, and I only did like 4 of them. And I saw
Wow.
guys out here in these Twitter streets talking about like I'm on draft 50 in best ball mania, and I haven't had the 101 yet. And I'm like, "What?" But you were blessed, my friend, because it ain't working out with Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
You were blessed.
Yeah, and honestly, I was checking my exposure the other day. I have 5% on Christian McCaffrey, so that means 1 in 20 drafts. That's where I was pulling the number 1 overall pick, so I
I
was getting
got
it
him in
less than a
2,
half percent of the time.
maybe 3, but I mean, it hurt me.
Uh,
It's hurt me, Dave. It's hurt
right.
me. Okay.
Yeah, so kind of a blessing in disguise now in hindsight.
All right, I'm not even gonna lie. It's the same old song and dance. I'm taking Derrick Henry. Okay, 150 rush. Basically, this I can't. It's obscene. Like it's laughably obscene the numbers that Derrick Henry is putting up on a week in and week out basis. Um, Fuck a receiving back. Fuck all that shit. I
I
probably
mean,
shouldn't be
Derrick Henry
cussing.
is a receiving back. I mean,
I
that's
know,
what
and
he's
he
been
is.
doing this year.
All right, I'm taking him. He's locked in, the number 1 overall pick. If I can't beat Dave this week, I mean, I'll try again next week, I guess.
All right. I'm just locking in right now what I've got as the wide receiver 1 and the tight end 1 for this week in a game with a 58-point over under. It's going to be an absolute shootout. I kind of tipped my cap to you before the show saying that I was targeting this game, but I thought that it might be a little bit steep in the skinny draft to go after somebody like AJ Brown. So I'm taking my man Tyreek Hill and I'm
Ooh.
taking Travis Kelsey right now.
Oh.
One of those guys is going to have a 40 bomb this week. I can feel it.
Oh, you're gonna do me like that. All right. So I'm sitting out here with Derrick Henry. I'm gonna take a look at these other running backs, but I really don't love what I have here. I'm just gonna take Devontae Adams. He's available. I'm gonna take him. Here's my issue, and I'm gonna be 100% completely honest with everybody. I have a bias against Cooper Cup that I cannot explain. I don't understand it. I don't know where it came from, but I do not enjoy Cooper Cup, and it's cost me. So I'm going to bite the bullet and I'm going to say goodbye to my bias. I'm gonna put Cooper Cup on my team. See
Well,
what
I
it does this
appreciate
week.
you not sniping me on the stack because I'm just going all in on the Kansas City Chiefs, baby. Let's do it. I already got Tyreek Hill, already got Travis Kelsey. I'd be a fool not to stack him up with Patty Mahomes right there.
Yep.
And I'm very happy with that stack in a game that I expect to be an absolute shootout. My whole $5 right here pretty much rides on the Chiefs, just spanking on the Titans this week. And then this guy, he's been a bit boomer bust. But this week, going up against Washington, who has not been the same Washington team that we've seen recently. I'm expecting a boom game from Aaron Jones, so I'll take him as my RB1.
Okay, taking Aaron Jones. All right, so I have a fundamental question here for myself, and that's: do I also take another player I'm known to be biased against in Joe Mixon, chase the volume that I saw last week that I love, and for some reason he's buried down here on these underdog rankings? This run defense for the Ravens is not particularly amazing, and I kind of anticipate this being a bit of a battle too. So I was talking all that shit about AJ Brown, and I just auto picked Kyler Murray because I couldn't shut up. So I'm going to go ahead and take Joe Mixon. I am glad to have Kyler Murray, and that just leaves me with a tight end to pick.
Yeah, and I love Kyler Murray this week. I think that he's got a really good matchup, but who I love more than Kyler Murray is his wide receiver one, who finally got it together last week. He also has the revenge game narrative, like we talked about earlier when talking about Matthew Stafford. So I'm taking DeAndre Hopkins here. I can understand making an argument for DJ Moore, Debo Samuel, even Calvin Ridley or AJ Brown, but really, really like what I see from him. And then Jonathan Taylor, this dude just been red hot. So already got Aaron Jones as the RB1. I will take Jonathan Taylor, in a nice matchup as my RB2.
All right, looks like we both opted to go with a double running back build. This is going to be fun to break down in a second. I'm going to stick with my man, Mark Andrews. He hasn't led me astray yet. So let's take a peek at these teams here. So my team, I got Kyler Murray as my overall quarterback one. I didn't draft him because I couldn't shut the hell up, but I'm fine with that. It was going to be him or Lamar Jackson for me probably. But I enjoy the floor. I will say, last couple of weeks, Underdog has kind of let me down. I did not play him this last week, so obviously he was incredible. Got Derrick Henry. Nothing but a big grin on my face there. Joe Mixon, I've been biased against him. I don't have any Joe Mixon in any season long or any dynasty leagues, but I do respect what Joe Mixon does when he does play. My issue with him has just always been you never really know which Joe Mixon you're going to get, and you never know when you're going to get whichever Joe Mixon you're going to get. But this week I'm gonna take him against Dave. Got Javante
We saw
Adams and
last
Cooper
week
Kupp.
with Joe Mixon too was a season high in targets, and that's what we really wanted when we drafted Joe Mixon during the offseason, was hoping that he'd be more involved in the passing game, and he was last week, and that's why he had this huge boom week. So, I'm loving Joe Mixon going forward, and I like that pick.
Yep. And I think this Baltimore defense is not anything to be scared of. And this is a division game, so I think it's gonna be a bit of a dogfight. So I'm happy to have exposure to that game. Like I said, I got Devontae Adams. There's nothing to say there. I would have rather had Tyreek Hill, but Dave's got to be a jerk about it, so whatever. And then I got Cooper Kupp, who again I'm also very biased about, but I'm not gonna just let him not be drafted to this team. The only other option I thought about here was DJ Moore because I was chasing the targets, but I'm going Cooper Kupp. We'll see how it goes, and then Mark Andrews. All right, so Dave, why don't you walk us through your team? I also just want to bring up I did not stack on my team. Dave did stack, so there is some research out there that shows that there is what's the word positive correlations between having stacked teams and non-stacked teams because you get to double dip on those points. So
You do, but you could also get double screwed if they don't work out. So let's say somehow, Tennessee shows up and just decides to throttle Kansas City this week. You got the easy $5 there, but I don't expect that to happen. I think this is just gonna be a high scoring game. It wouldn't surprise me if both teams crack 30 points. So I think Mahomes goes absolutely bonkers. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey are obviously the number one and number two targets on that team. So I really like locking up the three of those, but um we'll be able to tell just by how that game goes. That's going to make or break my week right there. Because if they don't get off to, if they don't have a big game, I'm pretty much screwed. And then with the running backs, I was just kind of shooting in the dark there with the two guys that I had ranked highest when I was making my picks, which are Aaron Jones and Jonathan Taylor. And it's kind of funny just looking at how much team defenses can change year over year. Because last year, if you saw running backs going up against Washington and San Francisco, you were shying away from them a little bit. And both of those teams have really softened up a lot on defense. And they might turn it on as the season goes on, but they have not looked like very intimidating defenses through the first few weeks. So Kind of crazy, that we're already changing our mindset this quickly into the season. But Washington and San Francisco are both pretty nice matchups for running backs, so I like both of those. And then DeAndre Hopkins, just that's just a pure gut call right there. We talked about some of the other guys. AJ Brown. I could have done that to kind of hedge my bet on that Kansas City outcome a little bit, but really liked what I saw from DeAndre Hopkins last week. He looked like a beast, especially on that one play where he was just ripping through defenders and making sure that he got into the end zone. And then you just pepper in that little bit of a revenge game narrative going up against Houston. I think that he can have himself a huge week.
Yeah, I like that Hopkins pick for you. He's another player. I feel like sometimes on my channel I get a little too anecdotal, but I don't ever draft DeAndre Hopkins. The first year I played fantasy football was on my team, and he was amazing. I loved him. It was incredible, and he's going to be the first player that when he does retire, will have spent his whole career playing fantasy football, because I believe I started playing his second year, but the year after that, the Brock, or 2 years after that, the Brock Osweiler year, I drafted him with my first overall pick, and then I took with 108, and I took Allen Robinson with the next pick, and that was the year that
Oh,
he
that
tore his
2014?
ACL.
Oh, 2015.
I think it was 15 or 16. So I've never since then drafted DeAndre Hopkins, because he destroyed my teams that year. And it's just one of those things. Like, I think it's important to acknowledge stuff like that, because we're real people. I'm a real person. I'm not, and I want people to know, like, when you hear my advice, you're getting it from somebody who has, been hurt by some of these people. DeAndre Hopkins hurt me, by playing with Brock Osweiler for a whole year. Somehow Brock Osweiler is one of the few quarterbacks I've seen in real life play football too. So, but anyway, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, that is the Underdogs. Short and sweet around here. Make sure you give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. And like I said, please, please, please go subscribe to our podcast. We want to get the podcast feed rolling up a little bit. Besides just being on YouTube, obviously YouTube's dope as hell, and you know that if you're watching that here. But podcasts are cool too. They're a little passive listening. So give us a little follow over there. If you like the show, give us a 5-star review. That would be cool. And yeah. So any last words, Dave, before we send the people out of here?
Oh man, just really excited to go up 3-1 on you after this week.
Come on, bro. That's not happening. Now, listen, if it does, it's going to be really hard for me to show my face on this show. It's going to be real. If I text you at 6:30 next week, like, man, my stomach hurts. Like,
I mean, let's be honest though. When you're doing these head-to-heads, it's a coin flip. I mean,
I
we
love
can we
these.
can
I
study all we
think
want.
they're
I think
so
they're
fun.
fun.
You're
Yeah,
being
I
really
like them.
gracious, because if I was up on you, I'd be a little harsher, but I'm insufferable. So,
Hey man, we got a lot of season left. Tables can
yeah.
turn quickly. I don't want to rub it in too much because God forbid you do take a lead at some point in this season. I want you to
Amen.
remember how kind I've been during these trying times for you.
Oh, all right. I will pay it forward. Smart man. All right, ladies, gentlemen, boys, and girls. This is the Underdogs. We will see you next week for another head-to-head draft. Click the link below. Get on Underdog. Do some drafts, and we will see you out there on Sunday.